Hello and welcome back. You're listening to LNC Radio 113.8 FM. That was Paul Anka, Put Your Head on My Shoulders. Hope you enjoyed that one. It's such a beautiful song. Such a beautiful song. I found it when I was going back through all these. I really think the cultural zenith of America occurred between the sort of the 50s and the 90s, like the golden age, and then the silver. Maybe the golden age was sort of, like just after World War Two, sort of 45 up to about the 80s or something, and then maybe the silver age was sort of mid 90s to 2010 or something like this, 2012. Um, but yeah, I went on a big tear through a lot of that old American culture. I went. I've always been a big sort of fan of Norm Macdonald, as I said, and he was on Conan, and then he was on Letterman, and Conan and Letterman then led me to Johnny Carson, who led me to a bunch of his guests, Dean Martin, etc. Well, particularly Dean Martin. I mean, that's where I was going with the story, because Dean Martin, also hilarious guest, great performer, but such a great singer as well, an artist. Um, and he led me through a lot of this old sort of crooner music. I'd already seen some Sinatra and stuff, as everyone has, but I hadn't heard of the Rat Pack and their associations and the group and the sort of style of music they created, this crooning and stuff. So beautiful, and I really wish we had more music like that these days. It feels like music these days has really gotten out of touch with the heart and a lot more in touch with the penis, to be honest. Um, which is sad, um, because really what motivates us more than our emotions, our heart. I mean, those are the big two, the dick and the heart, really. Um, Maybe these things just come in waves. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, in a similar vein to Christian revivalism and apologetics having taken off in the last sort of 5 years or so, I suppose, I would not be surprised if you also had a cultural revival of this old school stuff. I mean, you can see it in other areas. I think it's called Super Kill or Ultra Kill. It's this game. It's basically a Doom clone. Obviously, Doom having been created in 1993, um, and the whole rest of the 90s was basically followed by Doom clones, and even modern FPSs owe their heritage to Doom, and Doom does to Wolfenstein, I suppose, as well. But it's so interesting. So the fact that people have gotten bored of modern games and now they want pixelated 2D shooters again. I mean, who would have kind of thought that development would happen when technology has gone so far ahead of what was capable in those days, and yet we're using this god tier technology in order to play a game that you probably could have run in 1994 or 5 or something. I mean, obviously there's obviously differences between that and Doom, which would make it slightly more demanding, but they're not major. You could make a much sort of simpler version of Ultra Kill, and it would probably run in the Doom engine, I'd imagine. I've never played it. Even Games Workshop have released something, 40k Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, um, which is just another Doom clone, but 40k. Again, probably could have easily fit in the 90s. Maybe not. Maybe Doom's engine didn't have the capability, but by the time you get to Quake or something, I mean, or Half-Life, probably wouldn't have been too difficult. Especially if you kept the Doom aesthetic, which would have cut allowed you to cut back on visual and graphic design quite considerably. Um, and then you see vinyl. We have we have devices in our pockets which can store. We don't even have to store, which can access the Akashic records, which is the cloud of songs, and there's literally millions of them. that you can access at any time, you know, wherever you are, as soon as assuming you're in somewhere fairly built up. You know, so you have these games, you have these this music. I would not be surprised. I mean, obviously the films even. I mean, the last 10 years or more have been just dedicated basically to rehashing old franchises and normally doing them very badly, to be honest. I mean, you have to look at what Ghostbusters, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, The Mummy, Men in Black. Oh God, the list goes on of franchise they've tried to rehash from those that golden era and that silver era, and it's just been utter dog wank. It really has. Um, so I would not be surprised if within music you had a sort of revivalism of the heart, of honest intentions, of romance, of emotion and love, which I think is missing because and by the way, this is something that I never thought I would hear myself saying. After all, I remember saying when I was 12 or 13, why is it that every song has to be about love? Ugh, love's so boring, it's so overdone. And then, I was raised in an era where that was dying or had already died, but I listened to a lot of my parents' music and I thought, that's where that sort of sense of boredom or longing came in. But having seen the alternative, which is just unbridled hedonism as far as I can tell, and egotism, yeah, that's not great either. I much prefer, oh, I'd die for you, I'd do anything for you, my heart only beats for you, you're the only person I care about. Woo! I far prefer that shit to, I don't care about you, I don't care about any woman, no one controls me, I do whatever the fuck I want, I fuck all these bitches, I do all these drugs, I make this much money, I'll kill this guy if I don't like him. Like, come on. That's, it's just not on really, is it? It's just a bit basic at the end of the day. It's like we've degenerated. We had this ethereal, abstract version of love, this ideal that we aim towards in our music and our culture, and now it's baseless materialism. And would I say it's due to the decline of God in our society? Potentially, potentially. I mean, in other parts of the world, they're still making music that honors these old ideals. Um, but then they're also taking new spins. I mean, you only have to look at Arab culture. You'll see a lot of the songs they have lyrics which are more poignant, I suppose. And even when they fall into those sort of egotism traps, there's a sort of self-reflection that I think it is evident in American and British music, but not to the same extent. I think when you get to a certain level in those in the West, I suppose, then maybe you start to see the pointlessness of it. But the majority of people see the coolness of it and then go into it with that, and it's a massive ego pursuit. Um, but there it's more, oh, I did this, but this was a massive mistake. And you do get that here as well, obviously. But the point is that unbridled egotism is the living for your dick or living for your pussy or whatever. Living for it's. I mean, it's so boring. It's so boring. I mean, I get it. You want to talk about how many girls you get, and I'm sure you get plenty. But it's just. I guess maybe some people find it inspiring, but then that's maybe something you should not inspire to. As I say, whether it's the decline of God or not, I wouldn't be surprised if that had downstream effects. God is dead and there's not enough water in the world to wash out all the blood. Um, and it might take centuries for those effects to become evident. But one of the effects I can see is that people don't really believe in a universal morality anymore. Maybe there isn't one. I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't one, regardless of whether God or gods do exist. That doesn't necessarily imply an objective morality, but regardless of this, the the disillusionment with that ideal, with love, is slightly concerning. And then you look at sort of divorce rates, and um, 50% of marriages end in divorce, and that's just the ones who are brave enough to get the divorce. I think, as Eddie Murphy said, and it's true. I mean, if there are more people who want to get divorced than people who actually get divorced, and divorce is already at 50%, that means the majority of people are in unhappy marriages, at least when they are married. So it raises the point of, why is that? I mean, you can see a slow rise in divorce rates as soon as it becomes legalized, and as soon as it became legalized, all the ones that were entirely necessary, or all the ones that happened, were ones that were probably entirely necessary. I don't know that, speaking out my arse, but I'd assume when divorce initially was legalized, a lot of women, a lot of wives, let out a sigh of relief and thought, finally, I can leave Jacob. He beats me, and he doesn't bring home the money, and our kids are starving. Time to leave and maybe do it my own way, and hopefully I'll find someone else who shares my ideals. And it worked well, and that's why I've always believed in divorce, obviously, legally speaking, but culturally speaking, now it seems maybe a bit too accepted, because I think even in those days there were women who thought, well, this guy's not great, but it's also on me to make the most out of it, and it's also on him to make the most out of it. And assuming both people were mutually trying to do so, then the relationship worked, no matter what the differences were normally. Like, as long as everyone understands each other's boundaries, each other's triggers, each other's personality traits and patterns of behavior, even in the face of big disagreement, you can have a positive relationship with someone. And I think any relationship that's getting better is a positive relationship. It's hard to have a negative relationship that's getting less worse. It normally just becomes bad, but as soon as it is getting better, it becomes good again. So I think societally pushing for staying together is necessary, but I would never want any legal compulsion to do so. Regardless, um, that sense of love, really. I mean, Paul Anka really captures it. I mean, that's what it is. It's as a man, at least, it's you're with the person you love more than anyone, and you can't literally be the same person, but by her putting her head on your shoulder, and you put your head on hers, and you're cuddling and lying together. It doesn't have to be sexual. It doesn't have to be erotic. It doesn't have to be hedonistic. Just that alone, that companionship is so worth it and so beautiful. And my heart goes out there for anyone who hasn't or isn't experiencing that. Um, because that's really what it is. I think it is a divine kind of, not a divine, it's a human aspiration for the divine, for unity. I think that's what love kind of is. It's like, man, we love each other so much. I wish we were just literally together. Obviously no one thinks about it like that, but like, what is sex? I mean, it's combining your bodies in the most intimate way possible, and then if a baby pops out, I mean that's combining yourself as well into another person. And obviously, I think all of us have this. Well, maybe not so obviously, but I would like to see some research into the idea of inherent childhood trauma, whereby for the first 9 months of existence, you're inside your mother. Literally, you are part of another person. There's warmth all around you. It's unity. It's love. There's an exchange. It's and then you leave, and you can never do that again. No, you don't have a choice. You can never go back to that. But there's a longing, I think, that's instilled in us for that, because we were in a comfortable, loving place, and then we entered the world, which is cold and distant at times. I think there's a longing to feel that unity again, and I think that's part of what love is. I think that's part of two people cuddling up together in a purely, in a non-sexual way, in a purely emotional bonding kind of way, an oxytocin type of way. I mean, that's what life is about, I think. Anyway, some people pursue a career, and I've never really understood the pursuit of a career for its own ends. I mean, a career is, fine, but it's a job. I think of a career as something maybe that you do for reasons other than the money you get from it. I think a job you do for money. A career, there has to be something extra in there. And yet, perhaps a striving for professional excellence, or perhaps even a striving for power, or there's a strive to achieve something other than just getting money, you know, or it might even be sort of a quest to reach an absolute point of progression, I suppose. Reaching like progression for its own sake. Maybe you like the idea of getting more money, or per year, since from compared to last year, as a marker of progression. So some people are doing it for that as well. Um, but I don't understand that. I don't understand single women in their 40s who prioritize their career over their family, or even having a family. And then by the time they're 80, their co-workers aren't visiting them. It's just them. It's just them. Their husband might have left them to find another woman who actually did want kids. Um, or might not. Maybe she's still with her husband, but her husband's going to die before her, probably. You know? So yeah, we're going to go to a new song now. But I want everyone to remember that it's not about hedonism and pleasure. It is about that connection, about that union, whether it's a divine union, whether it's not, whether God has a role in it, whether He doesn't. I want to play Nina Simone. My baby just cares for me. Thank you. You're listening to 113.8 FM, LNC Radio.